Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I made this large painting of the Everglades and a handful of animals in it. So first things first here, I'm going to go ahead and ink in everything that needs to be inked in. You can see I've already drawn this in pencil. This was a very involved process, so I didn't want to make you watch me draw the whole thing in pencil. I figured just watching the pen lining would be enough for you guys. You know how it is. Most of the time I draw the pencils first off screen. And today we're going to go ahead and jump through here really quickly and get through the lining process, because I think the painting process is where most of the information is going to be found at. So there is the line work done. I'm not completely finished with it, obviously. Once I do some painting, I'll come back in and do some more line work after that. But that's going to do it for now for the line work. So let's jump into the painting process. You can see here, there's a lot going on. And so I needed to make sure that I broke this down into a few steps that made the most sense for me. And you guys know I always like to paint from back to front. And with watercolors, it's easier to go from light to dark. And so I figured the best place to start would be on the cypress trees in the background. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I went with a nice light green wash for kind of a base color for everything. And then the trees on top of it are kind of a brownish gray. During this process, initially, I'm just getting down basic colors that I can refine later. So everything's going to look a little light. Like you can see these palmettos in the background. They're pretty light green. There's not really a lot of shadow going on. Same thing with the trees and the cattails and everything that I've worked on so far. I'm not going to be doing super dark shadows yet. I got to wait until all my colors are down so that I can kind of tell what's going on. We're at a point now where the background looks pretty good, and I'm going to want to put in some of the details on some of my animals in the front. So you can see me here working on this great blue heron first. I've painted a lot of these in my day. I really like these birds. They're one of my favorites. And this guy was actually a photo that I got from my friend Jim Deluco. He's a photographer. I've used his work for a couple of my paintings, and this is just one of his pictures that I use as a reference. But you can see me coming in here and putting in some base colors. Same thing with the deer in the background, and I'm going to jump onto all my other animals as well. So you saw that I painted all of the stuff that was in the water before painting the water itself. This is a technique that I figured would be a good way to use it. I want this stuff to look like it's underwater. And so I'm using what's called a wash, where I use a lot of water and a little bit of pigment so that it's very translucent. And I'm going to paint over everything, the line work and the paint that I've already put down. And it's going to just kind of tint everything this green color, which is going to make it all look like it's under the water, which is exactly what I'm going for here. I'm also darkening up some of the areas of the cypress trees and the cypress knees that are under the water, so it looks like they're wet as well. This is just to help give me more of the effect. So let me give you a list of every animal that's in here so that you could go home, or I guess you probably are home if you're watching this video, but you can watch this and you can look up these animals if there's any of them that you don't recognize or that you'd like to learn more about. They're all very interesting creatures, all creatures that I have seen personally here. I think every single one of them. Yeah, I mean, the dragonfly is kind of made up, but I've seen plenty of dragonflies. But here we go. Let me give you the list of all the animals in this. I will go from left to right, I guess. I'll kind of highlight the one that I'm talking about when I mention its name. So obviously a great blue heron. Underneath the great blue heron, we have some bluegill and some sunfish. And then the one bigger fish in front of the heron is a largemouth bass. This guy floating in the middle of the water, this is a purple gallinule. The guy flying above him is a banded kingfisher, and we have a zebra longwing in the top, this butterfly here. This is the state butterfly of Florida. We have a nice spotted gar continuing on to the right, and a white-tailed deer in the bushes in the back. Like I said, this dragonfly is kind of made up, just colors that I thought would look nice, but you've seen a dragonfly before. And we have obviously the American alligator in the bottom there. I think that's all of the animals that we've got. A couple different species of plants that I've added in here. We have obviously all these bald cypress you can see in the water. We have some palmetto shrubs and trees, some kind of interpretation of an oak tree above the alligator as well. It's not super specific. We've got some floating plants. I put in a couple water lilies. I put in some salvinia underneath the gallinule. I also have a staghorn fern on this cypress underneath the zebra longwing, and we have a bromeliad and another cypress behind the kingfisher, and you can see a couple different groups of cattails. These little pokey guys sticking out of the water, these are cypress knees. These are kind of the root systems of the cypress trees, and they will actually stick out of the ground like that. I'm not sure exactly what their purpose is. I guess I could look it up and tell you, which I'll do in a minute here. But these guys, if you're native to Florida and you spend any time in the wilderness or near cypress trees at all, you're familiar with these. I've tripped over quite a number of these running through the woods while I was not paying attention. So something I'm very familiar with, being a Florida native. But I think that's about all of the flora and fauna. There's a couple different, grasses and things like that, but those were non-specific. And I think that's going to be all the flora and fauna that I have in here. So we're going to continue on painting, and I'll come back if I have something else interesting to say. This next step is a very important one. I have my white Posca marker out, and I'm going to add a white line along the top of the water. This is going to give it some kind of reflection and a little bit more of that water coming up to the camera lens look. The black line is going to help, but just above it is some white. It's going to make it look reflective. It's going to indicate even more of a separation. I think it really pushes it to the next level. And while I have that white pen out, I can add some highlights on things that I think will need them. So at this point, I liked where I had started, but I noticed that everything on the right side in the background, all of the palmetto shrubbery and the deer kind of blended together. There's not really enough darks back there. And so in this section, I'm going to be adding a lot of dark colors so that I can make that section pop a little bit more. So you'll see me adding in some darker paint around everything that I think is unimportant. I'm even going to darken up more later, but I haven't done that yet. And another thing that I'm adding in the background, which you've seen me do already, that I'm doing a little more work to, is areas that I hadn't already outlined with pen. I'm kind of indicating some more shrubbery back there behind the bushes and behind the trees, just to give it more depth. I thought it was a little bland back there. So here you can see, after I've given some time for the darkness in the background to dry up, I've gone back in with my white marker and I'm drawing in some of these palm fronds. Basically, I want them to stand out a little bit, but I needed to make everything else dark first so that these would stick out in front of it with the white. They're not going to stay white. I have to let this paint marker dry, and then I'm going to add a light wash of a lime green that will tint them green so that they look natural, but this white underneath will make them stand out a lot more, which I think is a really cool effect in the end. This is kind of just the refining stage. You guys know how it goes. A lot of the work is already done, and now I'm just taking my time, looking at things, pulling stuff together. I'm kind of moving my eyes around the canvas or the paper a lot so that I can see what areas need a little bit of work, what areas I think are pretty good, and I want everything to be at a point where I'm happy with it. So now that I've gotten to that point, we'll go ahead and sign here. This is the bottom right hand corner by the alligator. My standard signature, John Johnson II, and it is 2026. And I'm pretty happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, I really appreciate if you could leave me a like, comment, let me know if this is something that you think is interesting. Subscribe if you're not already, share this with your friends, all the standard YouTube things. It makes a world of difference, especially for a channel as small as mine. It helps to show YouTube that this is something worth sharing and worth pushing to other people. So any little bit helps. I really am grateful for all the help that you guys do give me. I think that's going to do it. There is probably a box somewhere for you to click on, and a circle as well. It's another video they think that you'll enjoy, or you can go straight to my channel. Check out my other stuff if you haven't already. Thank you. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one.